All right, so I just want to go over the Chapter 16 homework assignment. So this first problem is calculating the equivalent units. And so if you look in the textbook, Exhibit 16.9 shows you how to compute equivalent units of production. And so we know we compute that based on the goods completed and transferred on to the next department and the ending work in process. Okay. One thing I have to caution you about is to be very careful about reading the information that they give you, okay? And so you'll drop in, they tell you they completed units and transferred them to the next department. That's the goods completed. And when they give you information about of the units that were completed, how much came from beginning work in process, or if they give you the percentage completion for beginning work in process, you don't need to do anything with that information because you need that information to do the FIFO method. We are only doing the weighted average method, okay? So here they tell us that 17,000, well, in my example, they tell you how many units were in process at the end of the period. So those are the units. And then you'll multiply it by the percentage of completion, okay? And we're only asking to do the direct materials. So you know the goods completed, those are 100% done. And then based on the information they tell you, they'll tell you how much, what the percentage of completion is for the ending work in process. Okay. Whenever, and this is very common, if all of the materials are added at the beginning of the process, then even though the ending work in process isn't all the way done, they have all the materials that they're ever going to use if you get all the materials at the beginning. So a lot of times the ending work in process is 100% for direct materials. Now it's going to be less than 100% for conversion costs because that's why it's not done. They haven't finished putting it together. So you're just going to do it two other places. And again, when they tell you this third one, the percentage of completion for beginning inventory, we don't factor that in because we are doing the weighted average. We just want to know the percent completion for ending inventory. All right, so then the next one, we're actually going to do all the steps. You know, we've got the 4 steps in process costing. And so the first one, we've got the equivalent units of production. Okay, so they don't actually lead you through it. You're going to need a piece of scratch paper, right? Because we need to figure out how many units we're talking about, how many units were completed and transferred, how many units are in ending work in process. And I don't think they tell you directly. You kind of have to back into the information, right? Because if we know the beginning work in process, we know how many units were started, and we know how many units are in ending work in process, then we can back our way into the number of units that were completed. Okay, so we're going to need the number of units completed. Those are always 100% done. And then look at what they tell you about the percentage completion. So they give you this percentage completion for the ending inventory for materials and conversion costs. So you'll add together the equivalent units for the ending work in process to the number of units completed and transferred. And you do that separately for materials and conversion costs. Okay. Then you're going to do step 2, and they didn't lead you through it. They're just wanting the answer, the cost per equivalent units of production. Okay. So you want to look at Exhibit 16.10 in the book, okay, because you're going to then accumulate the costs. Okay. So the beginning inventory plus the costs added, and you do it separately for materials and conversion costs. And then you're going to divide it by the equivalent units of production you got in requirement 1. So that's how you'll get your answer for requirement 2. And then requirement 3, you're going to use that cost per equivalent unit to assign costs to the units transferred and to the ending work in process. So you should check out Exhibit 16.11, okay, to see how that's done. And when you're done, the amount you get for total costs assigned needs to equal the total of the beginning work in process plus the direct materials added plus the conversion costs. Okay, that needs to equal that amount. That's how you know. It's kind of like a check to see if you got it right. So that was the second problem. Oh, I don't want to do that. I want to go to the next problem. So then problem 3, actually 3, 4, and 5, you're going to do the process cost summary report. You're going to do it 3 times. So really by the end, the repetition, you should have it. Okay, and that's what you're going to need to be able to do for the quiz. Hopefully by the time you get to the last one, you're not even referring to any notes. You're not having to go back to the exhibits in the book, because you have to be able to do this process cost summary without looking at that. That's what you need to know it that well by the time you do the quiz. So you can go to exhibit 16.13, okay? And there you're going to get an example of a process cost summary. So we're going to start off with the cost charged to production, all right? And so we've got the cost of the beginning work in process. You're going to add together the direct materials and conversion and put that here. And then the costs incurred this period, you're going to put the total of direct materials and conversion, and then add that together. That's the total cost to account for. You're not going to fill in this total cost accounted for. Connect is going to do that for you. So you're going to go through and you're going to do the unit reconciliation, okay, to figure out how many units are completed and transferred and how many units are in ending work in process, so that we can then calculate the equivalent units of production, right? We only use the units to account for to make sure that we've accounted for all of the units. So the beginning work in process plus the units started for give you the units to account for. That needs to equal the units completed and transferred and the ending work in process. Those are the 2 categories that we're really focusing on, okay? So we need to then get the equivalent units of production, and they actually, in the information here, they give you the equivalent units of production, okay? So they tell you the units completed and transferred are 33,000, so we know those are 100% done. And then the units in ending work in process, they're 100% done for direct materials because they tell you that the materials are added at the beginning of the process. We can see the conversion cost equivalent units for the ending work in process, so we know what that is, and we can divide that by the total number of units in ending work in process to figure out the percentage. So in my example that I have here, and you may have different numbers, so we had 2,100 equivalent units of production, right? But there were 3,500 units in ending work in process. So that means they were 60% complete. So usually you have to figure out the 2,100, you're given the percent completion. And this one, you're going to have to figure out the percentage, okay? So you can just go on through and you'll have to do the entire report. When you get to the end, and Connect helps you with the math, this total cost accounted for will be entered right here. Connected's going to put it there, and it should be the same amount as the total cost to account for. So you're going to do that process cost summary. You're going to do that in problem 3. You're going to do it again in problem 4. And then you're going to do it again in problem 5. So again, hopefully this repetition, you're going to be very comfortable with this 4-step process by the time you've completed problems 3, 4, and 5. And really problems 1 and 2 are also related to this. One extra thing you're going to have in in problem 5 is requirement 2. They want the journal entry to record the transfer of goods to the next department. And so if you go and you look in I don't have the page numbers. I'm still waiting for my book that's has the page numbers that you have. So I'm not going to give you the page number, but there's a section called Accounting for Transfers in the chapter. And it shows you the journal entry to transfer the goods from this department's work in process inventory account to the next department's work in process inventory account. Okay. And I will say when you do the quiz, okay, you're going to need to know the journal entries, not just this new journal entry. It's going to also be a review of the journal entries from chapter 15. So when we put direct materials into production, right, applying the factory wages to the work in process, applying the overhead to the work in process. So you're going to need to be able to recall all of those journal entries, as well as this journal entry. And also in the chapter, it tells you the journal entry to transfer the goods from the last process into finished goods. So make sure you're looking at all of those. Okay. And then I also want to just give you a quick look at the chapter 16 Excel sim. So we did the Excel sim problems in Accounting 2140. If you didn't take Accounting 2140 here at COD, make sure you do the orientation for the Excel sim. So everyone is pretty skilled after taking the Moss exam. This shouldn't be anything too challenging. All right, so if you've done Excel Sims problems before, if you're new to this, you can't type in any numbers. It's all building formulas. So the units transferred to the next department, you're told in the information how many units are in beginning work in process. You're told how many units are started, and you are told how many are in the ending work in process. So if we add together the beginning work in process units plus the units started into production, that gives us our units to account for. And we know that needs to be the same as the ending work in process plus the units completed and transferred. So if we subtract our ending work in process, that's going to give us the units transferred to the next department. And that's going to be the same for, oops, why didn't that let me copy? Oh, you're going to make me do it again. It's going to be the same for materials and conversion costs. Oh, my formula wouldn't have been the same because it was in the same cells. I needed to make them absolute cell references, sorry. Okay, and so make sure when you're bringing down, say, the cost of beginning work in process, we know we can't type anything in, right? So we want to bring down the cost of the beginning work in process. We have to do the equal sign, right? Only cell references. Okay, and so you're going to just do that process cost summary one more time, but all in Excel. All right, so hopefully by the time you get to this one, you're not using your notes at all, right? And if you still are, that's fine, but keep doing these problems until you can do them without notes. Okay, good luck.